Hello all, welcome to JavaScript tutorial series. In this video, we'll learn about JavaScript classes and objects. My name is Niranjan Wagmare and I will be your tutor for this video. Right, so without wasting time, let's get started. First, understand what is classes and objects. So, what is a class? Class is a template for objects. Okay, then what is objects? An object is a collection of similar type of variables and methods. Now it's all confusing, I know. So let's understand it with some example. Okay, yeah. So let's start. First, we'll understand what is class. Class is giving a template. So what it is holding name variable, marks variable, and get percentage. And that template is going to be used by object 1, object 2, and object 3. So in this object, if you see name, now this variable has some value Aditya. In the object 2 there is some value Mahesh, and in object 3 there is some value Vishal. And similarly for marks, these three are the marks for their respective person. And get percentage, now we are calculating the percentage for each one of them, but we are using the same template to do these all things. So this is basically what do you say, a class and object thing. Just remind, just recollect that we said class is a template for objects. So this class is giving a template to objects. And what is object? Object is a collection of similar type of variables and methods. So these all are similar because this all data is of students. All right, these all are related to student. So instead of creating different variables, we collected them all into a single object. For that, we created a class which will give us a template. What all would be there inside the student class. So there could be multiple fields like roll number or the which standard or which year the student is in. So there could be multiple things. All right. For now, we'll just understand these three things: two variables and one method. Okay. And let's understand that with some coding example. So let's and this this folder I've created this class and objects, and I'll close this, and I have already opened that in the browser, so we can quickly start our task. So I'll create the script tag because JavaScript should be inside the script HTML tags only. Script, right? It should be here. And now, how do we write a class? What is the syntax for writing a class in JavaScript? So for that, we'll write class keyword, then class name, that is students, and curly braces. So inside the curly braces, now we'll first write the method. This is get percentage method. So remember, there's a slight difference between a method and function. So what is that? If you remember, function, we used to write function keyword in front of the method name, right? But here we will not write that. We'll just write this, the parenthesis, then curly braces. Inside that, we'll write our execution code. All right. So let's do that. So we are calculating. For now, we'll just leave it as it is, and let's do the rest of the part. So it will, we are assuming it will calculate some percentage. So I'll create a variable percent, and I'll return this variable, or I'll do console log. Now how this variable percent is going to come, that's a later part. We'll do that later. But first, once the class is created, now we should be using objects, because This is just the framework, but actual values, actual percentage would come from objects. So how we'll do that? So for that, we'll create a variable to store an object. For that, we'll write let and then obj1, the way we did here, obj1 equal to new keyword, and then the name of the class for which we have to create an object, that's students, and then parenthesis. Inside those parentheses, we'll write something, but for now we'll just close it with semicolon, and then on the next line we'll write our object name, that is obj1, and dot get percentage, and inside the percentage we'll write some code. All right, this is kind of skeleton kind of thing. So what is happening here? If you remember, in for functions we used to write the function name and the parentheses and any arguments that you have to pass. But what is happening here, since it is not a function, it is a method inside a class, we cannot call it directly. We need to reference it with the object for that class. So how we are doing that? Object1 dot get percentage, this function or this method. So let's do that. So to calculate a percent, and we have to, like, we are going to display it with the name, for this Vishal, we'll how we'll do that. Vishal got 120 marks and 60%. This is what we want to output. So how we'll do that? First we'll calculate what is percent, and how we'll do that. And we are assuming the total marks is 200, okay, out of which they got 120. So let's do that. uh, we'll call a variable marks divided by 200 into 100, simple formula to calculate a percentage. Now where did this now one more thing we need, like how we are going to do that. Name plus got plus marks, or before using that plus we'll just write, marks plus mark. This is the key. Whatever we are writing in the double quotes would be the string, and these things are variables, right? and and percentage. So for that we'll add the percentage, okay. So now this is what we given name and marks, but how will it come into this function? So for that, to get access to these things, we'll write parameters name comma marks, and similarly we'll pass some values here. Name would be not here, sorry, this is the class, it should be inside. Let's call it Vishal, and the second argument would be marks, so he got 120 marks. And let's see the output. Refresh. You see, Vishal got 120 marks and 60 percentage. So this is working pretty fine. So let's understand more about this. So what we are doing here, we are passing this value explicitly, like from the object, or not directly object, we are passing this our value to directly to this get percentage function. All right, but what we have, drawn here, this name and marks are the, are the components of that template, like, the data. So, but here you see there is no data for that. So how will we do that? We'll write constructor method. So what is a constructor method? Constructor method is a method that is called as soon as object is initialized. So here, as we are initializing this object, the constructor method is called. Okay. So why we use constructor method? We use constructor method to initialize some values. So like here we have written the name, marks, but these name and marks belongs to this students. All right. This name and marks is different from this name and marks because this is different, right? So this belongs to this students. So to that we'll write this name because it is of name student. You know this variable belongs to the student class, and for that we'll pass a name, and that would be our argument. We'll do code for that later. And this dot marks equal to marks. All right. And to provide this name and marks, what we'll do, we'll pass name comma marks, and to come in, like, to get inside this constructor we need to pass it from somewhere. So instead of passing from here, control X, we'll pass it from here. All right. So now while initializing the object we are passing this value. Okay. And these value would be called inside this function. So we won't need these parameters now because they are already present in the student class. So how will we access them? We'll access them with this keyword, this dot markets, mark, sorry, and this dot name, this dot marks. Similarly, yeah, for percent we don't need that. We won't need that. Okay. So let's see if it is working fine as it was working before. Refresh. It is working fine. All right. So to you know create a variable as a template in the class, what we are doing, we are passing it to this name, like in the constructor, this name, because this belongs to student, and like this belongs to the class, this name, and this name, this one, this comes from this student. All right. So this might be a little complicated, but just bear with me. In the next video, we'll understand what is this. But for now, just focus on this, the class and objects. In the later video, we'll understand what is this and why we are using this. Okay. We use this to, in short, we use this to, reference the class. Okay. Because what would happen if there is no this? You get it? So there would be some name, and how would we differentiate this is different, like the student name is different from the one that we are sending, like this is a parameter, right? How would we differentiate that? That's why we use this, but more on that in the next video. For now, this is the first student. Let's do that to others. In our example we have three objects, so let's create three objects quickly. Control V, Control V. All right. So let's make it a little readable. Yeah. So first one is Aditya, who got 120 marks. I'll just press Windows and right arrow key, and we'll need this and this. Okay, understand that. So first is Aditya. and he got 120 marks. Oh, sorry, he got 150 marks. Then there is Vishal. No, there's this Mahesh. You see, Mahesh got 70 marks, and then there is Vishal. So this is object 1. This would be our object 2. Object 3 and object 3. Let's see how it is working. Refresh. You see now, they got 150 marks and 75%. Mahesh got 70 marks and 35%. And Vishal got 120 marks and 60%. So this is pretty simple. Uh, for now, just don't try to understand this. I'll explain that in the next video. All right. So let's revise what we did so far. So we have created a class with the name students, and to use that, this is a template. To use that in, for some example, we have used an object with name obj1. All right. And while creating an object, we have passed this parameters to the constructor. And always remember, like method, we don't have to, call it with the constructor name. It is a default constructor, like default method inside the class. So you don't have to call it with constructor name. You can call it with the class name only. So this is why in front of students, this is the how we have going to call. This is how we call this, right? That's why we just written the class name and then parenthesis to to reference to the constructor. All right. And this new keyword we used, this new keyword is to allocate some memory. So whenever we are creating an object, we need some memory to allocate the object, like where to store the data. That's why we are using new keyword. Like for this name and all, the JavaScript knows this is an integer or this is an string. But when you are this object is storing some, some complex data like name, marks, and get percentage method, that time you need to allocate it. And then while allocating, you have to mention which, like for which class, or you know how much data would be there. So when we write a class, it understands, okay, it will have some uh, you know variables, and there is one function. For that you need to allocate a memory. So that's why we use new keyword. All right. Yeah, then we created our objects, and then we passed some values to the constructor, and that constructor allocates or the initializes this value, and then we use the variable, the class variables for our calculation purpose, and we got our output. All right. I hope you understand this, and thanks for watching. If you have any doubts regarding this video, you can write in the comment section. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.